Did it shoot such a massive bolt of pure magic at me? The human considered, terrified at the prospect of something controlling such force facing him right now. The brown-skinned orc brought another rock to the glowing staff, and the stone itself changed shape and grew out spikes from its mass. Oh, not a magic bolt. The human spellcaster visibly relaxed. Just an idiotic druid sort. Tobias, however, who only just now regained his focus, suddenly realized the important fact that there is shouting behind him, and the additionally important fact that an axe was coming toward his head. He just barely managed to roll back, his chest getting caught instead of his face. He grunted, feeling his chest burn, and the sound of drops hitting the ground, and likely painting it an ugly shade of red. Fuck my luck, magic-wielding and magic-weapon-wielding orcs! Alright? Just go back to being afraid like a good massive orc. He moved his hand forward as the orange glow of his hand once more out reach and struck Naraka's head. Naraka was not a bright or advanced learner, and simply because the spell has been done on him once does not mean he'll be able to immediately tell how to fight it back, or even if he should bother to dodge it. After all, he didn't see a reason in dodging most other strikes. Tobias, on the other hand, considered himself a brilliant and progressive learner, and he did not know that there would be an extra opponent who somehow found him. He had to track these two idiots since they left Gaido's lair, and that shamanic orc was not with them. So how was he here? Luck? This time, he placed enough magic into the spell to let it circulate on its own within Naraka's mind. Fortunately, he has been gifted, so he does not have to figure out the intricacies of the spell himself like most sorcerers do. He also knew the rock was coming midway through his attempt, and while he was aware of it, he wasn't much in the way of dodging while he was pouring magic into a spell. The spike ball that the orc shaman drove into his leg didn't stop the spell. All it did was hinder his movement and made him go, "Fuck!" Tobias shouted out, falling to one knee, pulling out the rock as the spell was finished. "Now what you're going to do?" Tobias turned to the brown-skinned orc with the glowing staff. The glow of the staff faded, and the shaman looked to Naraka. He grunted something deep and raised his staff toward Naraka. The purple from the crystal that ruled the light in this patch of the forest seemed to dim to almost nothingness and funnel into the orc's staff as a vibrant light of pink rolled from the bottom of said staff to its edge, and Naraka, being engulfed by the same light from bottom all the way to his temple, snapped back to coherence with a mere shake of his head, like a hound just getting splashed with water. "What?" Tobias glanced back and forth between the two orcs in bewilderment, then fear, then anger. "Do you think that's enough? Fine, I'll just burn you both," Tobias snapped. A fire that was both red and black leaked out of his hands. It was like it was brought forth from the night itself, fueled by it, all in the palm of his hands. He smirked, but the two orcs did not seem to recoil. For orcs, fighting was a way of life, and if some shiny light could mean death, then they'd be dead already before they knew it, and no loss was had. Tobias, on the other hand, looked only further enraged. "How dare they not fear me? I'll burn them, then they'll see." Each arm went to a different orc. Naraka charged, and the black fire coming toward him. Guru swirled the staff he held in circles as the trees and the branches listened to his command. Once more the light of purple around the Baetylus on Naraka's back dimmed as it seemed to pour into Guru's staff, and by the will of the beseeched Kurog, he gained a shelter from the flames. "No matter," Tobias concluded. "I will get the orc charging at me, the fool!" Tobias started hearing chirping in his ears. He shook his head, thinking maybe one of the cuts from the spiked balls was deep enough to give him serious blood loss and hallucinations. No, the ropes were magical. If enough to prevent serious injury even from a magic weapon or spell, then what was it? The giant axe carried by the orc opened, and the flames Tobias brought to strike down the orc were instead eaten away into the weapon, and were gone, as all that ended up reaching the orcs were black flame sparks. What? Tobias glanced dumbstruck. Naraka was not even phased. All that fear he had for Tobias, triggered by the spellcaster's mind spell, turned to rage inside Naraka, and so the axe was brought down on Tobias seconds after the flame left his hands, leaving the spellcaster unable to do much more than go, "Damn it all!" as Choppa cut at his other leg, further immobilizing the man to a spot and causing him to fall to the ground on both his knees. Naraka only missed due to having closed his eyes at the coming flames, but now he stood above Tobias, and his eyes displayed their intent to the spellcaster. As for Guruk, it seemed the branches burned, but the shaman did not, glancing down as well from a safe distance at the damaged spellcaster. They can see at night, but beforehand the orc couldn't see me clearly when I approached. He couldn't see through the magical darkness. He only noticed it wasn't a natural one once I got close. Tobias tried to think clearly. He couldn't win anymore with his gifted flame and mind spells. All he had to rely on is his final abilities, his control of the darkness. Still have plenty of magic left. I hope so. I have no choice anyway. Tobias laughed. The shaman did not move and instead grunted at Naraka. Naraka in turn took up Choppa and prepared for the final hits. Fuck you guys! Tobias uttered as the entire place turned black. Choppa came down, but Naraka felt no feedback from it. No shh or orcs could see in darkness, to a point. There was a sense of where the collision of heat and cold was. At least, that's how archaeologists say it worked. However, this did not apply to this darkness. This darkness was not like the absence of light, as much as a dense fog. A fog which, thanks to Tobias' given abilities, he could see through. As such, at the last moment, he rolled back from a chop of Choppa, crawling away as silently as he could. He found refuge soon under a dark hole, where it was colder than he would like, but he'd have to do in hopes of fooling and avoiding the orcs. He held hope that, for that, he relented the spell, shadowing the entire area all at once, breathing out suddenly as if something choking him released its hold, and only the hole he was within remained blackened by his spell. Naraka couldn't find the human anymore. He snorted and lifted Choppa back up from the wet ground, placing the axe on his shoulder with the blade by his ear. The human's blood was everywhere, and so were shadows. He had a different shadow, but it was hard to tell the difference from a distance. When a predator became the prey, it flees wounded, but if cornered, it will become a dangerous animal. Naraka turned to the shaman. Kill! The shaman grunted in question, looking to Naraka. Weak! Naraka concluded. There were more important things to do, so he shook his head. The shaman grunted in approval and motioned the greenskin with his staff. Follow! The shaman stated with a brief grunt. Naraka cocked his head toward the axe, then glanced back to the small tool on the ground. The shaman glanced at the halfling. Naraka walked over, bent down, and looked over the unmoving Mika. He reached over and took his back. Magic! Naraka grunted, knowing there are tricks in there, life shards, and maybe a few more of those healing liquids. The shaman nodded and grunted again with a motion of his staff. Naraka followed. The decision was simple and direct. There was no use in a broken tool. Repairing, creating, orcs cared not for these things. To them, there was only